Hello, I'm Mike Naylor, and I'm delighted to talk to two superb musicians, keyboard player Bill Sharpe and guitarist Fridrik Karlsson. Bill, of course, is best known for being the keyboard player with the jazz funk band Shakatak, and he's played with a host of other well-known names, including Gary Newman, Jeffrey Osborne, and Jar Wobble. Whilst Fridrik was part of the jazz fusion band Mezzoforte and worked on the soundtracks to musicals such as Jesus Christ Superstar and Saturday Night Fever. And he's played with Madonna, Kate Bush, Tom Jones, Cliff Richard, and Boyzone. Now, over 20 years ago, Bill and Fridrik recorded an album together called Peace of Mind under the name Espirito. And it's just been re-released on Secret Records. So I'm delighted you can join us. How are you both?
Good, thank you. Yeah.
Good.
So why has this been reissued now? Did it sort of go under the radar at the start of the millennium?
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's I guess sort of initially it was available and got great responses, and I think, as you say, it's gone under the radar. And the guys at the record company suggested maybe it was a good time to re-release it, and I think we both, having not heard it for years, had another listen and thought, oh, this isn't bad actually. You know, it's stood the test of time reasonably well. So maybe a good time to think about re-release, and maybe people who've never heard of it might sort of think, oh, that'd be interesting to hear. You know, obviously with our different backgrounds, and I have to say, Frizzy certainly outdoes me on who he's played with for sure. He wins that one.
This,
Yeah, I was cheap.
when you'd known each other for a while before you made the album, Frizzy, because I think you played on several Shakatak albums and you stood in as a guitar player for them on tour, didn't you?
Yeah, it was because Keith Winter had like a temporary illness, was then the guitarist for the band, and me and Bill had both worked with producer Nigel Wright, so who produced Shakatak, and he had produced one Mezzoforte album. So when they needed a guitar player to finish an album that started there, then Nigel thought, let me give this guy a call. He might be the right person for the job, and that ended up being, I think, about 10 albums I played on, and me and Bill got to know each other, and it was just sort of a mutual thing, you know, always talking about the same musicians and, you know, liking the same music. So I think that probably led to eventually that we thought we'd get together, do an album together, you know. So.
And what were you aiming for when you decided to compose these 12 songs? How did you want it to sound?
Well, I think you know, Frizzy obviously is with Mezzoforte and myself. You know, I don't know. Hopefully we have our sort of our individual sounds, but it was one of those things of wouldn't it be great to make an album together? You know, I had some tunes, Frizzy had some tunes, and then we wrote some together. And it's I just think it's kind of nice we're all, you know, involved in different projects outside our various bands, and I think it's nice to have a different perspective when you're writing and working, and we kind of, I guess we're used to working in the same way, so it was quite an easy thing to do. I mean, obviously we're going back 20 years, so we actually had to work together in the same room.
Yeah.
The technology wasn't around to send stuff and whatever. So, and Frizzy was living in the UK at the time. A great Shakatak song, by the way. Plug. And sorry. And it was easy to do in that sense. And so we sort of wrote together, you know, different studios together, and it sort of it was relatively easy, I think, to pull together because. We can work. We're used to working quite quickly, so it was it was fun. Obviously, the other part of the whole equation is you need to have fun as well, and we certainly had a lot of fun.
Certainly had a lot of fun. Yeah.
So it's another way of, you know, sort of doing slightly different music, pulling our sort of influences together, and enjoying making an album together.
Yeah. It's a pretty chilled album, isn't it? It's pretty relaxing. It's very cool, and it's, you know, a bit of Latin, a bit of Spanish. You've got a vocal in Portuguese on one of the tracks, and it's mainly instrumental, isn't it, too?
Yeah, it was actually the engineer programmer Steve Lima. He worked with us. I don't know how he came to the equation. You probably met.
I'd worked with him. He'd been working on Shakatak stuff, I think, and I'd met him met him through, you know, as you do in the music business, it's a pretty small community, and you know, maybe I got him involved, I think. And it just sort of developed from there, really. And he was he kind of, I mean, Frizzy's always been really good at the technology. I wasn't quite so good at the technology side of things in those days. So between him and Steve, they sort of I've been very spoilt in the studio. I was used to having people do it for me. that all changed. So Steve came in, and it was just really just the three of us, really, and we pulled it together, and we did have, I mean, there was I say not downtime, but there was a fair bit of silliness involved as well.
Yeah, and Steve, this one particular track, we thought that it was going to be a vocal track, and we thought it would be nice to have a Portuguese lyric on this, you know. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. Oh, okay. And then he wrote translated an English lyric and sang it as well in Portuguese. It was amazing, and it just did it in one take, and it's a really nice, soulful performance, you know. So he was a sort of, you know, really talented guy, you know.
Another vocalist that you used, I think, on the opening track called "You're the One" is Linda Taylor. Now, she'd had a hit record with the outfit Gonzalez, hadn't she?
She did, yeah. She was. I got to know Linda actually when I did my first solo album called Famous People. Linda and a lady called Tessa Niles were very, very big in the session world. I mean, between them, they've worked with. I mean, they've probably got a bigger list than Frizzy in terms of superstars they've worked with. But Linda was. Since doing the album and stuff, we became great friends, and it seemed like a nice thing. I mean, that's what you do. Obviously, pulling people to do. Again, she's fun. She also actually did. I think she did a little bit on Spitting Image. So she's a great impressionist. So that was, you know, it's important to have someone like that because it certainly lifts the spirits. There was a lot of comedy going on. She did a very good Margaret Thatcher actually, so yeah, so that was great. And you know, she had a very very soulful voice. It just, I think, worked with that track actually.
And it's sort of, I guess, it's sort of late night listening, or it conjures up to me, you know, being on a beach by the sea or by a pool and chilling out in warm weather. Is that with a drink in your hand? Obviously, is that how you envisage listeners hearing it?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, that wasn't maybe intentional in the beginning. We just, you know, went ahead and, you know, and then, you know, just the way the songs laid out, you know, and I suppose, you know, once you listen through, you know, it is sort of, yeah, like you say, sort of late night listening, you know, and also the Spanish guitar is always, I mean, I also do a lot of like sort of relaxation music, and I use the Spanish guitar all the time, and like I did on this, and that sort of always adds a sort of relaxed flavor to it, you know. So,
although having said that, there are a couple of really excellent electric guitar riffs and solos. I'm thinking of Montecito Nights, Frizzy.
Yeah, no, it's I've always, you know, I played both nylon guitar and electric. You know, like when I came to the UK, I actually moved over there because I was for a while I was just doing every week. I was traveling from Iceland to do session work, you know, and in the end I thought I just better move over. So I just moved over to the UK, and I was going to stay 6 months, ended up being 18 years.
Well, because you were so much in demand, I guess, as well, yeah?
Yeah, just I sort of slid into a few, you know, session groups. You know, I did a lot of the like X Factor, all the Angelo Debbe stuff. Also worked for Steve Mack doing like Westlife, Boyzone, Il Divo, all these kind of things. So, you know, and that was because I think I learned to play classical guitar. So a lot of players are maybe really good electric players, but not so many played both the nylon guitar and electric. So that meant it was cheaper to hire me because I could do two things.
You talked about, Bill, that it was a learning curve for you in a sense, because it was just the two of you plus Steve Lima making it, and the rhythm tracks were programmed, so using a drum machine. But I've got to say, and you guys then playing over the top of that, but you can't really necessarily hear that as being programmed to me. A lot of program music sounds programmed, doesn't it? Electronic music and so on. But I don't get that sense. I don't hear it in that way. It sounds really like a band.
Yeah, well, I think Steve's also a musician as well. So he I think sometimes if you're a musician as well as have the engineering knowledge, that does make a difference in perhaps in his programming, because he did a lot of the. I mean, did he do all the drum programming, Frizzy?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because he also
yeah.
he plays drums. That's the difference. I worked with so many programmers. When they just program, it's sound program, but he actually is a musician. He can play drums. So he's always, when he's programming, he's thinking, how would I do that?
So it does give it that.
And I think it ages really well. Because 20 years later, it doesn't sound that out of date.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's interesting. I was going to say, you mentioned you played as part of the X Factor band and so on. And, dance music came after, in the 90s a lot, and it's still around. There's a lot of female vocalists, solo female vocalists, and female sort of dominating the current music scene. How do you think what you've done with Espirito and this album, Peace of Mind, how it compares to the music and the sounds of today?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a conversation that could go on for a while, really, over a couple of glasses of Chablis or some nice white wine. I've obviously got my moany opinions, being an old fart, if I can use that word. But I think now, sort of the sort of pop, especially the female vocal, it sounds quite generic to me, and it sounds a little bit soulless, some of it really. So I think with our kind of music, it still feels real in a way. It feels it's musicians playing. It doesn't obviously have the pop appeal, and it won't get the coverage, say, that Dua Lipa or Ariana Grande, all those kind of singers, Rihanna, will get. But I mean, stylistically, obviously, it's a style of music that I prefer. I mean, there's still, obviously a lot of, these girls can sing and stuff, but it does sound quite generic now, and it sounds quite sort of tortured. So, and I apologise to anybody.
Yeah.
There's some great songs out there, but and somebody there was an article a while ago, and they said most of the pop music these days is composed by two people, which is why it does sound quite the same. But it's obviously doing really, really well, and obviously that's an interview for another time. But yeah, that's my thoughts.
It's an interesting idea in that everybody wants to sound a bit like each other, and then if it's not female sounding the same, it's everybody maybe trying to be derivative of Sam Smith or whatever, But I'm not saying it's invalid at all. I mean, as you say, there's a lot of great songs out there and a lot of great production, but maybe it is a bit manufactured, as you say, and a bit soulless. And Espirito, what you called yourselves, Bill and Fridrik, translates as spirit, really, doesn't it? And that was intentional too, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how the name came about. Wasn't it linked to a song or something, Bill?
We actually had with Shakatak, I'd written a song called Espirito, and I think we mentioned it. And there is a version on the Shakatak album, actually, but I think the version we did actually is my favorite of all of the versions. So we probably took the name from that. But Spirit, I mean, I think Frizzy probably, if I can do a slight sort of comedic thing, I think Frizzy would be Spirit in terms of he does the sort of relaxed spiritual albums, and mine is probably more Spirit in terms of a nice single malt whiskey.
So you presumably not really heard much of it over the last 20 years, or had you played some of it with Shakatak, Bill, and when you played live, Frizzy?
Well, it was, I mean, this album, when we did it, it was obviously released on a CD. The digital format wasn't quite as involved as it is now. So it was never properly put onto like Spotify or other streaming services. So that was a part of the re-release now, was to get it onto all the digital platforms. So that was a part of it. So I just, I think I spoke to Bill about 2 years ago. I just found a copy somewhere in my cupboard. What's this? And I listened, wow. And I called Bill, Billy, I just remember the album. It sounds great, you know. And then he had some connections to get it out into the digital domain, you know. So
I mean, and it's great that you said that it stands the test of time and it's not dated and the songs sound great. Do you think sometimes, you know, whether it's your own music and certainly with other people's, certain music can sound dated, even though you were fond of it at the time, and you know you might want to listen to it occasionally just for nostalgia reasons, but this is not like that at all.
No,
yeah.
I think when we made it, Bill, we weren't following any particular trend. I mean, that's what I found through the years. If you do an album, let's have to sound like this, you know, let's follow what these guys are doing. If you follow a trend, then that trend gets outdated and it's just gone. I mean, we just did album, tried to put our soul into it, some playing and stuff, and then I think that's why it dates or ages quite well, you know.
Yeah, and I think I'd certainly know with some of the Shakatak stuff, as Frizzy was saying, in the late 80s, early 90s, drum sounds particularly. I mean, I can, like Frizzy, probably I can date songs from like the drum machines and which ones were being used and all that stuff, particularly late 80s, and everything went a bit dustbinny. You know, Jam and Lewis, their productions with the Janet Jackson stuff, it was big drum sounds, and we, like Frizzy said, we did follow a few trends in the late 80s, early 90s. And I listened back to some of the albums from that period and I think, yeah, they sound of the time maybe and a little bit dated. Whereas for me, I'm talking of the Shakatak thing, we had an album called Nightbirds, which I think because we were just doing what we did, it sounds much fresher now than some of the stuff that we did in the late 80s and 90s. So I completely agree with what Frizzy was saying about that, following trends particularly.
We're talking to Bill Sharpe and Fridrik Karlsson. Together they recorded this album called Peace of Mind under the name Espirito. It's available on streaming services now and, of course, as a CD. It's the 40th anniversary since the first and debut album by Shakatak, Bill, very, very soon. You got dates in the diary to tour that later this year?
Well, it was actually 40 years last year, because we formed in 1980. And we had a whole tour planned and radio promotion, all sorts of stuff. And of course, like for so many people, it that went out the window. So this year is the 41st anniversary, which we'll probably call the 40th anniversary.
Yeah.
If we could, hopefully, we're looking to start playing in July if we can. So you know, sort of easing back into it. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, if we're, you know, if things do change on the 21st of June here, then it'd be great to go and play. So we'll be out there. We've got the programs ready. We've got the CDs ready. So, you know, let's hope. I know Frizzy will tell you it's been a very different, a different coronavirus situation in Iceland, you know, where it's been I don't think life's changed much at all, has it?
Well, yeah, we've sort of handled it differently, also being a smaller country, but we've managed to keep the infection rate quite low here, you know, but we're obviously way behind you guys in vaccinations, but they are picking up, you know. So, but
have you got any plans to play out live then, Frizzy?
Yeah, we've had to obviously cancel everything. But Mezzoforte is supposed to do a Norwegian tour, Danish tour, Germany. It's all been postponed until September, October, November, just to see what happens then, you know. So.
You know, and what's it been like not being able to play in front of an audience? I've been hearing a lot of stuff from Tom Jones, who at the age of 80 is releasing a new album, and he just can't wait to get back on stage. You know, it's like there's a limb missing if you can't do what you were sort of born to do. It must have been so frustrating. Do you pick up the guitar and get on the keyboards at home on a regular basis just to sort of keep in trim?
Well, I think we've both got studios at home. I'm sitting in mine, and I'm sure Frizzy's sitting in his. I mean, these days it's very lucky. So, and I've got a nice piano at home, so I've been practicing a lot, playing, and you know, we've been sticking stuff up on Facebook just to keep things going. So yeah, so we are. I know from the band point of view, Roger, our drummer, actually, he was looking forward to when I sort of spoke to him most of the time. He said that the thing he was looking forward to mostly was going down the pub and having a pint. That was his priority. Forget the band. But
Yeah.
no, seriously, I mean, we are obviously, I think everybody's just looking forward to getting out playing together, because we're very lucky. We still have a lot of fun. We relentlessly take the pee out of each other, very self-deprecating kind of stuff, and of course playing in front of people. Now, how are people going to feel about coming to see us is another question, because if you're going to be in a club or a theatre close together, I think that for a year people have been used to not being with people. So I think it's going to be more of a problem sort of getting people back in the theatres feeling safe. And especially, like Pizza Express in London, which is downstairs, 120 people packed in together. So I think it's going to be an interesting process as to how we all get back into the live playing. So hopefully people, I mean, myself, I'm thinking, well, like going into a place with 150 people in a small club, how's that going to feel for everyone? So once we all had our 2 injections and stuff, and everybody will feel a bit safer about it, will we carry on wearing masks? Don't know, but I hope that people are just like us, are desperate to get back and see live music. So hopefully we all feel the same way, and it'll all just kick off at the end of June. Fingers crossed.
Mm. I mean, the interesting thing is that, as you know, singing is not allowed by congregations in churches and all the rest of it. And it seems that the transmission can come from what might come out of the mouth as opposed to what we're touching. So the audience will still have to be masked and maybe slightly sat further away from you guys on a stage.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, every venue is going to have to sort of work out how they're going to do that. Because obviously in restaurants here anyway, once you sat down, you can take your mask off. So whether that will be the same in venues, I don't know. So it's going to be a whole new learning curve, really, as we get back into the world we were used to, a year or 2 ago.
But it hasn't, dampened the aspiration and the motivation to get out there by presumably it's actually made you more motivated.
Yeah, the way I've dealt with it, I've just focused more on my sort of songwriting and production, because I have my own music label with doing all my sort of chill out and relaxation stuff. So I've been pouring out stuff there, writing and focusing on marketing on these social media things and streaming services, because there's a lot. The music industry has changed a lot. We now have much more power, the musicians ourselves. We can market stuff, we can go out on social media, shout out there, we got anything out. So I've sort of used the time, because once you realize, I mean, initially when this happened, it's probably going to be 1 or 2 months off not playing, but now it's like a year and a half almost, and you have to just adapt, I've sort of put, because we don't know still when it's going to start. Like Bill said, also, if you go into a small club and you're like, playing next to somebody, it's just like, you don't know, so it's a bit scary, the whole thing, but hopefully we'll reach some kind of a herd immunity soon, so we can get on with things, but there's always a way, and I think some of the new things, I'm trying to see the positive side of COVID.
Yes.
There is something positive as well. I mean, a lot more negative, obviously, but there's some new ways or new things, like I've learned now in the last 12 years, I thought I would never be doing, so that's sort of there's a positive side to it, but obviously I can't wait to get out and play again. It's just like that sort of emotional release, getting the emotional juices flowing,
Yeah.
Well, it's been brilliant talking to you. I thank you so much for your time. We've been speaking to keyboard player Bill Sharpe and guitarist Fridrik Karlsson, working together under the name Espirito. Their album Peace of Mind, that came out, over 2 decades ago, is being reissued, re-released on Secret Records. I do urge you to go out and listen to it and buy the CD if you want, or download it, because it's available on streaming services. 12 really, really lovely tracks. It was great fun hearing it, listening to it, and I do wish you well, and let's hope that you can get out to perform later in the year, and we can get back to some kind of musical normality. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. It's been great. Thank you very much.